Welcome back, everyone, to the first Chaos Ball podcast of 2026. It continues into 2026, and this is episode 126. Welcome back from winter break. I hope everyone spent the winter time spreading Yuletide joy throughout their friends and family. I hope you all did the assigned reading over winter break and have come prepared to discuss such reading on this podcast episode. But it's been a little bit since I recorded, and really part of it, I took a break over the winter, Christmas time, New Year's, all that was having family time for decompression. Then the last week, I was somewhat waiting for news. I was waiting until the Japanese player signing deadline to see if there's going to be any Mariners related news, and there's not. Also, general world stuff bumming me out wasn't making me very excited to get behind the mic and talk baseball, but maybe that's exactly what I need. But I can't put this off anymore. I was waiting to see if there's going to be any more Mariners news. Really, there hasn't been. There's been a couple things that have happened since I last recorded, but it hasn't been a ton of news for the Mariners. There's been baseball news, but even then, there still hasn't been a ton of stuff. I mean, we still have some of the biggest free agents and trade targets still available. The biggest free agent of them all is still available. Kyle Tucker's still out there. Framber Valdez is still out there. There's a lot of guys still available. Like Cody Bellinger, there's been some rumors. I've seen almost no rumors about Kyle Tucker except for the fact that the Mets offered him like 3 years, $150 million, which I do love. Honestly, if I'm a team like that, I would just be like, yeah, why not? If I like the Dodgers could totally offer him that too. And I could see him playing for the Dodgers via an offer 5 years or less for $40+ million a year. I could absolutely see them doing that. They should just do that. Pause the podcast. This is me, your host, Matthew, from the future. Kyle Tucker did indeed sign with the Dodgers. They did exactly what I said. Not like an hour after I finished recording, I had to come back and add this in. They signed him to pretty much not exactly what I said. I said 5 years or less, $40+ million, and it is 4 years, $40+ million a year. 4 years, $240 million contract, $60 million a year, opt-outs after the second and third season. They really did it. Good Lord. What does this mean for the future CBA negotiations? I guess we'll find out, but I just simply had to come back and add this because, wow, that is preposterous. $60 million a year is crazy. The Mets were offering like $50, and I thought that was wild. So that's all. Just wanted to add this in. Back to your regularly scheduled programming. Thanks for listening. But yeah, I don't know. It's been an odd offseason. Like maybe it's just because a year before CBA negotiation, guys have signed. It's just news has trickled in. Thankfully, there wasn't a ton of news over the holiday season that necessitated a lot of people having to do work and get away from their families. That was nice. But yeah, it just feels, I don't know. It's not giving me the vibes of like Bryce Harper and Manny Machado signing in March, like years and years ago when that happened. I want to say 8 years ago now. But it's just been odd. It's weird. There's been almost nothing with Kyle Tucker. Like the biggest free agent, the guy, like the S tier free agent of a class that doesn't really have any other S tier free agents in it. Like Bo Bichette is available still, but I don't think he's like there. Kyle Tucker's just in a league of his own in terms of either the total amount or the AAV that he's going to get. I think it's going to be a lot more than anyone else. But I don't know. Bregman just signed for 35 AAV. That was 5 years. I don't know. It's just odd. But the Mariners, what have they done? How are they doing? Not much. They signed Andrew Knizner. He's a backup catcher. That's what I got for you on Andrew Knizner. No, I was actually surprised by this. This was shortly after I released the last pod before Christmas, and the rumors were Andrew Knizner. Seemed like that was just what I don't think they were in a bidding war for anyone else for him. And yeah, he's a backup catcher. His name is a little confusing. It's spelled K-N, like Knizner, but it's just Knizner, which I am confused by. But he's signed a 1-year, $1 million contract that could go up to 1.5. So this is a cost savings backup. They could have gone like Mitch Garver probably still will get, you know what, I don't know. Maybe he won't get more money than that. They could have gone like Victor Caratini will get more money than that for sure coming off the year he just had. I listed off the bleak backup catching options on the last podcast, and Knizner was definitely one of them. But I don't know. Seems like he's going to be fine. He's going to be a fine defender. He's not going to play much. I don't think he's going to hit well, but he also doesn't. I think he's a good archetype as a backup catcher. One, he's not that old. He's going to be 31 this season, so I don't see any offensive gains for him this season, but I don't know. There's not. The traditional aging curve doesn't tell you he's going to be a Sebi Zavala at the plate. And defensively, he looks like he's going to be able to handle himself quite well with the pitching staff, and he doesn't strike out a lot. He doesn't really do much else than that, but his strikeout rate is pretty low. He's a contact guy, which I think at least is better than a really high strikeout guy for a lineup like this. Just if he's in the lineup at the 8 or 9 spot, having a guy who puts the ball in play is, I think, better as a backup catcher than having a 3 true outcome guy down there. And maybe by the numbers that's incorrect, but by my assessment of how I would build a lineup, I like a little bit of extra contact down there. Just add some chaos into your lineup. And he's not going to play very much. I think I had said, like, oh, maybe they'll get Cal off his feet a little bit more next season because he played so much this year, chasing the MVP, chasing the playoffs in the division, played every game in the postseason too, and they played all of the games they possibly could to still lose in the ALCS as well. Not that they got swept, so that he played as many as possible. But that doesn't appear like it's going to happen, I think. And honestly, why not? He's in his prime. He's 29, clearly the best catcher in the league. On a theoretically Hall of Fame track over the next decade, if you just kind of throw in some filler numbers until he's in his late 30s and continues with his prime like it is right now. And so I think there's run him into the ground might be the wrong way to put that, to be honest. But I think he's going to play as much as possible, just like last year. And this team needs it. I mean, also you have a catcher that good, and he's not the type of guy to not want to play. And the amount that he DH'd last year in between catching, I think he wants to do that. And so I think I think it's going to be more pretty much every day for Cal. So backup catcher, pretty much like I said last time after they traded Harry Ford, it is the position that it doesn't matter a whole lot to really winning. And to the Mariners, it matters the least amount how good the backup catcher is compared to the starting catcher. So Andrew Knizner, welcome to the team, my friend. And then they made another signing, and this one is more interesting than Andrew Knizner. Rob Refsnyder, who I hope a lot of people got to know after the Mariners signed him, because he's been a very pleasant hitter to watch the past 5 seasons, I'd say, on the Red Sox. Just a pretty steady Eddie out there in his role, and sneaky one of the more valuable Red Sox position player wise this half decade, just in terms of what he's provided for them. Like, he has just been so damn good against lefties. But he signed for 1 year, $6.25 million, which can go up to 6.5 with incentives. I think it's like play appearances and stuff, which, like, hey, for the Mariners, that's not an insignificant amount of money. I'm saying this is a good signing, but just like that's not Yeah, that's not an insignificant sum for this team to give out. But he's a good player. I think this is a good signing. It's hard to find an issue with this one. On paper, great addition to pretty much any team wanting to win baseball games. Just to have him in your clubhouse and have the ability to put him against lefties when you need to. And this is just it's an obvious move for the Mariners too. Not a ton of money, and fills positions of need against left-handed starters, and also just fills a solid bench role. You get a veteran in there in his mid-30s who's been successful in the league for a long time. That is always pretty valuable, unless they're like Tommy Pham and pretty inflammatory to the clubhouse, which it doesn't seem like Rob Refsnyder is even close to Tommy Pham in that regard. But the thing is, the veteran right-handed bat acquisition has not been kind to the Mariners in recent times. We don't even have to go far back at all, thinking of Donovan Solano. But like AJ Pollock, even Mitch Garver you could throw in there. It's like, it gives you a little bit of pause, right? Thinking about the guys they've acquired to kind of fulfill the same type of role. A guy you'd want to DH against lefties and maybe provide some cover in the outfield for Mitch Garver to be the backup catcher in DH. But it hasn't gone well in that regard. He'll be 35 this whole season. I think he turns 35 literally on opening day, which is like the 25th or 26th or something of March, if I remember correctly. But he'll be 35. He's 34 and now he'll be 35 the whole season. Forgive me for saying this. Like, knock on wood, do whatever you got to do. Throw some salt over your shoulder. Smudge your apartment with sage. Do whatever you got to do. He feels like the absolute safest acquisition recently for this type of, this archetype of player. In terms of, recent production against left-handed hitting and, recent and good track record production-wise. Because over the last 5 seasons, hitters with a minimum of 500 plate appearances against left-handed pitching, if you just look at this list, sorted by WRC+, he has a 152, which is quite good. If you don't know, 100 is league average, which means he's 52% better than league average against left-handed pitching, with over 500 plate appearances, a solid sample. That ranks 6th, tied for 6th over that span the last 5 years in all of MLB. The guys above him in order are Aaron Judge at the top, shocking. Paul Goldschmidt. My computer auto-corrected Yordan to Jordan Alvarez, which is not his name, but Yordan Alvarez is 3rd on this list against left-handed pitching, which is insane. I don't even want to talk about him potentially being healthy next season going into the battle for the division again with the Astros. I don't want to talk about it. And Ketel Marte, Yandy Diaz. And then he's tied with Altuve. Rob Refsnyder is for 6th place here. So, pretty good. Really good track record against left-handed pitching. Just absolutely mashes them, and consistently and often. And Fenway, great place to hit for a right-handed hitter, you might be thinking. Luckily, WRC Plus is ballpark adjusted. So listen, he's going to be fine. Even with a little regression that follows like a normal aging curve, and maybe you have to factor in Mariners hitting acquisition regression, which is, maybe lop another 10 to 15% off of that production. That's still a real good weak side platoon option to have at your disposal. They'll need it. They'll want it, and they have it. He is going to fill kind of a hole on this team. I mean, it's a bat first outfielder. He'll DH, I'm sure, against left-handed pitching when Cal is catching against left-handed pitching and not DHing. He can play first base too, so if they want to get Naylor off his feet, I know he had that shoulder injury last year, maybe they'll play it safe with him. But even If they just don't like a matchup late in the game with Naylor, for whatever reason, you can always just play him at first base, which is helpful. I just think it's a good signing. There's not a whole lot else to it, and I think it makes the roster better. I think it's just a floor raiser. It's one of those. I don't think you're going to win the World Series because of Rob Refsnyder, but he's probably worth a win or two in the season, and that could be really valuable. He does kind of feel like a perfect name to be on the list of World Series MVPs because baseball ones are especially wacky. Like you think like the 2018 Red Sox, maybe the best team I've ever watched in my lifetime. And I'm 99% sure their World Series MVP was Steve Pearce on a team with Mookie Betts and a lot of other really good players. But Rob Refsnyder feels like the perfect World Series MVP. So, maybe future World Series MVP, Seattle Mariner Rob Refsnyder, 2026. But it's a good signing. I like it. It's just good. He'll probably get 250 plate appearances this year, maybe 300 if things go awry. I'm sure he'll hit occasionally against right-handed pitching, but I think it's just a good signing. And they don't really have this type of guy to call up from AAA either, which is really helpful. They don't have – obviously he's a veteran, but if you just look at who they have depth-wise on the right-handed hitting outfielder and or first baseman, since they traded Tyler Locklear last year, they don't really have a solid backup DH first base guy. And you look at AAA, they just don't – that's not a thing that they have down there. Maybe Brennan Davis, who they just signed. But a lot of these guys are lefties. If you look at – Spencer Packard, I'm intrigued by because he's hit at every level, but he's a lefty. And you look at any of the infielders down here too, they're all either lefties or guys I don't want to see. Ryan Bliss. Ryan Bliss doesn't play first base. And they don't really have no first baseman in this system, which is interesting. I wonder if that is a strategy. But yeah, this is good. I like this. I like this signing. Good for them. Now, who'd they miss out on? Unfortunately, Kazuma Okamoto signed with the Blue Jays. I was very sad about that. I was really hoping the Mariners would sign him. The Okamotive, however you want to say it, has gone north of the border. 4 years, $60 million. MLB Trade Rumors had him at 4 for $64, so they almost nailed it right on. No idea if the Mariners even made an offer. Unless I completely missed that reporting, I haven't seen a confirmed Mariners were close. They were just one of the teams involved. But I doubt they would have given him a fourth year. I bet they did offer him something, but I think that fourth year, it sounds like, kind of put it over. The fourth guaranteed year kind of put it over the top for him. And also, why wouldn't you want to go play with the Blue Jays right now? They just went to the World Series and lost, and they have turned around and been the biggest spender of the offseason. For a team that already had a pretty big payroll, they've been like, no, we're not going to accept that. We're going to spend on really good players, and it doesn't seem like they're done. And so why wouldn't you want to go sign there if the offer was the same, 4 for $60 for the Mariners or the Blue Jays? I would go play for the Blue Jays personally. Not that the Mariners had a bad season, but it's just, you look at what they're doing. The vibes are so good up north right now, despite losing the World Series. I really think the Mariners should have done this. I was all over this. He was my number one target. After I had come to that determination, they should sign a full-time third baseman after they got Naylor and did that move. Instead of doing a second baseman, third base just makes so much more sense. Right-handed hitter, kind of the opposite of Munetaka Murakami, who the Mariners also didn't sign, but I'm very okay with that. Just a proven good hitter. Just one of those classic capital P professional hitters. And, maybe he'll scuffle adjusting to big league pitching. Maybe he won't, and maybe he'll just be a really stable player for 2 to 3 seasons for the Blue Jays. He's a little older, that's why he's not costing very much. 4 for $60 is really reasonable. He can play third base. I don't know if he's great at it, but he can play it. It's just a shame. It's just a shame that a franchise like the Mariners, once famous for Japanese baseball players is not the premier destination for them anymore. Like I guess it's the Dodgers, but I think it's largely good for, like, on a macro level, good for the sport that these highly coveted Japanese free agents, and even, just lump in the KBO with that too, are going to different markets across the country. Like Tatsuya Imai signed with the Astros, which was kind of out of nowhere, because that should tell you how much, excuse me, the game has grown. The Astros signed a player out of Japan. I don't think they'd ever done that. I don't think anyone was considering them for Imai, although it does make sense for them, for sure. And they have a good pitching apparatus down there, so maybe they'll get even more out of him. But I don't care for him going to the Astros, but I just think it's a sign of where baseball is at, and a good sign of where baseball is at, that the top two Japanese free agents, and I think I'm going to say that because Murakami's stock really fell hard. But I guess let's say top three. Let's lump in Murakami. They went to the Astros, the Blue Jays, and the White Sox. Like, go back 15 years, maybe even go back 10 years, and it's like, wow, that's crazy. I would have never guessed those three. So I think that's ultimately good for ball. But I'm pretty sad about Okamoto. I don't want him to be good for purposes of, I don't want the Blue Jay. I don't like the Blue Jays. They're kind of a rival at this point and in the American League. But I hope he's good. I hope he proves my gusto for demanding the Mariners sign him and don't. I should just not say anything about the Mariners signing anyone anymore, because it just doesn't really happen. Like Naylor was the obvious one and it happened, but it's a shame. So where does it leave the roster? I guess I'll briefly mention the arbitration agreements. Everyone but Bryce Miller, for now, has avoided a hearing and agreed to a contract. So that would be Randy Arozarena, almost $16 million. Logan Gilbert, almost $11 million. Randy's actually, I will say, Randy's was a little lower than expected. That, like, $15.65 million for a fourth. He's a Super 2 guy, so that's his fourth year of ARB. I think the estimates were closer to 18 or even 19, so that is less than expected, and nice that they agreed to terms. It didn't file at completely different numbers. Logan Gilbert, George Kirby got $6.5 million. Brash got $1.5 million. Luke Raley got $2 million. Spire got just over $2 million. And then, all the rest of all of those guys are, good on the team. Brash, Raley, Spire, that was their first year. Kirby, that was his second year. Logan Gilbert, that was his third year. But he has another one. He's also a Super 2 guy, which just means, depends on when you get called up, just means you get an extra year of arbitration. And then Bryce Miller filed at $2.625 million. The Mariners countered at $2.25, so that's a gap of $375,000, which it's crazy because that would change my life immeasurably right now if I got that money in there. Just quibbling over it. The hearings haven't happened yet, so there's theoretically a scenario here where they still don't go to a hearing, but I think they probably will. I don't know. I've talked about arbitration before. I just don't think I would like to go to a hearing to hear from my team why I shouldn't get a certain amount of money, even if maybe they're on the right. And also, the arbitration system is archaic. It's really stupid. I'm not going to get into it now, but if you haven't looked into who the arbiters are and if they know ball, they do not. Spoiler alert. You just look up the system. I think there needs to be something else than this current system that we have, because it's just kind of insane how arbitration works and who the actual arbiters are. I don't think it's going to be changed in the upcoming CBA, but I just think it's something has to change. But that was a successful arbitration time, though, I would say, for this team. Getting 6 6 out of the 7 guys to agree and just go into a hearing potentially with one, that's fine. The Mariners made a trade today. Sorry, interrupting the podcast. Who did they traded for a relief pitcher from the Reds? I completely missed this. Yosver Zulueta, 27-year-old who's DFA'd by the Reds. All right, so that's kind of a nothing burger trade. That is Jerry's 195th trade as the Mariners general manager. Steve Cohen just tweeted, "Let me know when you see smoke." Like they're announcing a pope. I'm gonna release this and they're gonna sign Kyle Tucker, but it doesn't really matter for the Mariners. They don't sign free agents that good. Yeah, the Mariners 40 man is full. Sorry, I'm just looking at this trade. The Mariners 40 man is full. And they made this trade, and I think he has to be on the 40, so someone is going to be DFA'd or they're making a trade. This would be awesome. I'm out for a month. I record, and they're immediately going to trade for Brendan Donovan, like right after I'm done recording. Okay, but onward and upward. I'm upset that Okamoto didn't sign with the Mariners, but where does the roster stand? I still need more to be happy. I think they've done some things that are fine. Getting Naylor is good. Getting Refsnyder is good. I like Jose Ferrer as well. There just needs to be more. There just needs to... This team is, I think, I feel like I say this every time I do a podcast. They're too risk averse. I need more risks to be taken to strive for greatness. But I think they're in a spot, and the offseason's not done yet, but I think they're in a spot with a lot of other teams right now where they're just like okay with where they're at. Like they know they're a good team. The floor for this team is pretty high. And you can be risk averse when you're in this scenario and there's 3 wild card teams that make the playoffs every year. Like it's easier to be mediocre and win the World Series. It's never been a better time to do that. So why take a huge risk when you could just be okay with where you're at? And plus, the division is kind of garbage. Like, I think the Astros are going to be fine. I think they're going to be good again. They're good every freaking year. Rangers, I have no idea about the Rangers. The A's aren't completely bad, and nor are the Angels. Like, there's not going to be the worst team in the league in this division, I don't think. The Angels could implode, but I think they have enough to win another 73 games or whatever they did last year. But what else could the Mariners do? I mean, another bat still would be awesome. Really, a third baseman. Second baseman, sure. But really, a third baseman would be amazing. But who is even available? On second baseman, Ketel Marte, not going to be traded, it sounds like, this offseason. At least not this offseason, which I think is good for the D-backs. I personally wouldn't trade him. I would trade for him. I wouldn't actually trade him if I was the D-backs. So that's a nothing for this offseason. Maybe a deadline acquisition for some team if the D-backs are really on a downward spiral. Third base and another relief pitcher are where I'm at for this team. The problem is almost all the third basemen are acquired. On relief pitching wise, there's still relief pitchers. There's always relief pitchers available. I think we're going to get a ton of names thrown at us between now and opening day of this guy has a spring training invite with a major league option or minor league contract, major league option. There's always a ton of those in the relief pitching world. But the name I really want is Sir Anthony Dominguez. I think it's a very simple solution to just immediately improve your bullpen and give it some length for an entire baseball season. You could sign him and he could implode right away too. Like, that's the thing. That's how relievers work sometimes. But you wouldn't be risking very much cash to sign a Sir Anthony Dominguez. And I think they need a guy like that. They need a reliever who has been in the league a while and is fine. Like, his floor is fine. His ceiling is good. He's not going to be one of your main 3 out of the pen. Like, you already have that locked up. You just need a guy for some of those middle innings and maybe an occasional high leverage cover. Jose Ferrer is going to be interesting, but I think another right-handed reliever would be great. I think even if they're trading with the Cardinals, I still love JoJo Romero, and I don't think it really matters if you have 3 lefties in your bullpen because JoJo can get anyone out. Like, Spire would probably still be employed more as a lefty specialist, same with Ferrer, but then JoJo would be just like a dude. So I don't even think it really matters to have 3 lefties in the pen, and why not, you know? But then addressing third base, like, the free agents available are pretty much only Eugenio Suarez. Okamoto signed. Bregman just signed. They weren't going to get Bregman anyway. Willie Castro just signed with the Rockies on a 2-year deal. Go off, Rockies. Bichette, not a third baseman. The Mariners aren't going to sign him, but he's also not a third baseman. Anyone who thinks he's a third baseman is kidding themselves. Arenado just got traded, too. I wasn't a fan of that option, but it was an option. So it's really just Gino or the most obvious fit that has been discussed, like ad nauseum, all offseason is Brendan Donovan. He's not a primary third baseman. He can just play third base. He makes so much sense for this roster. The type of bat that he is he's just a good hitter, doesn't strike out a ton. We've talked about this, and he can fulfill so many needs. He can play second base. He can play third base. He can even play outfield in a pinch. It would be so good for this team to acquire him. It feels like the Mariners are the favorite to acquire him, but I hear that every week, and then nothing ever happens. And he's so positionally versatile, and I say that because he can play a lot those positions. He's not good at them. I'm not going to promise you he's going to be a good defender, but he's a good enough hitter and has been so consistently good at the plate in his career. It feels like a slam dunk. And I think why he hasn't been traded is Heim was probably asking for a ton, and discussions have stalled with a lot of teams, I'm sure. But also now that they continue to trade guys and a lot of the third basemen are off the market, it makes things interesting. There are less teams looking for a third baseman now. I still just think it makes a ton of sense for one of the Mariners pitching prospects or anyone else. I don't think Jerry's going to deal from the big league team here. And then make it a bigger deal, like I said, add JoJo Romero in there. If Jerry trades for JoJo Romero and Brendan Donovan, I'm very okay putting the bow on the offseason and calling it a good one. Because that would really make this team the favorite in the division if they're not already, which I think they are, and a clear best, maybe second best team in the American League behind the Blue Jays. So just do that, you know? Why not just do that? Because looking at this team on Roster Resource, I like this team. I think this is a good baseball team. Like I said, I don't care to see that Casey Legumina, Jackson Kowar, and Carlos Vargas are still in the bullpen. I think Carlos Vargas could be good at some point. I just don't think he is. Casey Legumina is not a major league relief pitcher. I hope he proves me wrong. Nor does Jackson Kowar. Both of them really not amazing. They're going to have so many options. They have Ryan Ludis in AAA. But they need another guy in there because it's good. It's got the bones of a really good bullpen, but I fear it's a little thin still. Rotation is fine, is good, probably going to be good if they can stay healthy, which is never a thing for starting pitchers. But the lineup is just like, it makes me sad when I look at the end of it because it's Randy, Cal, Julio, Naylor, awesome. And then Dominic Canzone in the 5-hole. I'm unsure. I think he's. I don't want to get rid of him. He definitely showed us enough last season that he can hit. But will he post a 140 WRC plus again? I'm not so sure. And then after that, it's Victor Robles, which would be him or Luke Raley in right field. J.P. Crawford at shortstop, which is inevitable. Still fine at the plate. Defensively makes me upset. And then the last two on here, in this order, Ben Williamson and Cole Young. I am good with Cole Young at second base. I've said that. I'm okay with rolling him out there. If it really goes catastrophically, then you can figure that one out. But I would much rather Cole Young start at second base on opening day than Ben Williamson start at third base. That shouldn't preclude them from getting a second baseman. And why Brendan Donovan would be helpful is I think you would probably start him at third because I don't think Ben Williamson should be on the starting roster on opening day. Maybe you can convince me he should be on the bench. And then if Cole Young goes poorly, maybe you play Ben Williamson, you get some amazing defense in the 9-hole, and you play Brendan Donovan at second. That makes sense to me. And then the bench is Knizner, Raley, Rivas, and Refsnyder. I'm good with Rivas being a bench bat. I feel like he has that. He has the it factor as a bench utility infielder. And he showed it last year. He's had his freaking moments in a Mariners uniform, and he hasn't had that many plate appearances. So I like him as a little depth guy, as a little. I shouldn't say that. He's not. I mean, he's small, but you know what I mean. So there's just something. I just don't like looking at Ben Williamson as the 8-hole hitter at third base to open the season. I just don't think a serious team would do that, especially given the amount of third basemen that were available this offseason. Like, again, the risk averse thing really, really pisses me off because the Mariners could afford that Alex Bregman contract. Now, I think it might be a little bit of an overpay, and they did defer some money to lower the value of what it is right now. But still, the Mariners, why not? Why not spend that money, man? That's why Okamoto felt so reasonable. So reasonable. Not a long contract, not a ton of money. I wouldn't dislike a Gino reunion. I'm just a little scared of how it might go. I feel like the whole league is scared because he just came off an insanely good season at the plate, and he's still unsigned, and I just don't know how much money he's going to get. Like, is he going to get more money than Okamoto? I don't think he is. So maybe he just falls back into the Mariners' lap. I wouldn't dislike it. I just don't think it's optimal. Like a team like the Pirates, which he's been mocked to, he's been rumored to, that feels like a good swing signing for them. Because when he's on, I mean, God, if he puts up another similar season, that'd be awesome for the Pirates. I don't think they'd be good still. Or like the Reds, he's been rumored, a reunion in Cincinnati, which would be interesting. I think a team like that makes more sense. Because the Mariners, I just don't think they want to risk giving him money again. I feel like they'd rather just do Ben Williamson. And even if Colt Emerson wins the job on opening day, have him play third base, which I'm not against. I just think should not be option numero uno to be like, yeah, we're just going to do a Ben Williamson, Colt Emerson thing at third base instead of acquire a proven guy while Colt still develops and can take the trident from J.P. Crawford when he sails off into the sunset after this season. So that's where we're at. That is where we're at. There's not a whole lot else to talk about with this team. Gabe Spire made the USA WBC roster, which is cool. That adds to yet another Mariner in the WBC, which there are already plenty. I'm really excited about the WBC coming up. But I think I'm going to call this one here. I'm hoping to do an episode soon about a little project I have been working on, a documentation project surrounding Jerry DiPoto. And I hope to do an episode about that soon. Obviously, if any big Mariners news drops as well, I will probably do a podcast about it. But I took the winter break, and now I'm ready to really get cracking into looking at 2026 and what happens. I purposely did not talk about Nico Horner in this episode Just saying, I didn't want to talk about it in this episode. I'm not ready to formulate my thoughts on it. I don't think the Cubs should trade him, and I don't think the Mariners are going to trade for him. But we'll see if the rumors pick up. Maybe I'll do a little horn dog episode. But for now, I'm signing off. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and of course, I'll leave you with the first Go Mariners of 2026.